Hi everyone, I think we are live, hopefully. We'll see, make sure this catches up. I am joined by the shoulder chicken, who I'm pretty sure the majority of this live stream is going to be me picking him off the floor because he keeps trying to get up to me on my shoulder. He doesn't really want to stay on his branch back there. It's a teaching experience for him. I've got a question. Bigelow Fine Arts is asking if I found the block of Fabriano Artistico watercolor paper different from the sheets, or are the mediums? I don't know. I haven't used it yet. I do have it. I bought it recently, but I've not tried it yet. So I'm not sure just yet. So my shoulder chicken is back here eating his pine cone right now. I gave him a new one, so I'm hoping it'll keep him busy for a while. I don't have high hopes, honestly, because he's just not prone to stay on his branch. And yeah, so today we are working with Derwent Graphitint. These are water-soluble graphite tinted graphite pencils. The box of the one that I have looks like this. And there are 24. They're mostly browns and blues and grays. You don't have a lot. There's like one kind of purple color. You don't have a lot of variation as far as like yellows. My project doesn't really need that, so that is fine by me. And they're, like I said, just tinted a muted color, very pretty muted tones. Looking through here, am I missing anything? And Valerie has reminded me to start recording. Thank you. I will do that now. Hit that record button. And we are going to go ahead and start on the background. Now, this is not going to be a night, or at least I'm not intending to finish this project. My intent is just to get started and give you some tips along the way, as I kind of figure stuff along the way too, because I've only done one thing with these before. I did a bird last year at some point. Loved them, but then never got around to using them again. So we will go ahead and try these out. So with these, this is actually going to be a fairly forgiving project because I can paint right over my whales and not worry about the paint getting the water or background getting on them, because I would need to get the white of the orcas the same color as the background anyway. So I get to be pretty sloppy. I'm going to start with my sand. Let's see what colors I want here. And one of the biggest tips I can give you when working with any type of watercolor pencil, Inktense, or a Graphitint, test it on another piece of paper. Let's see. I am going to try this pencil here because they don't always look the same as what you see on the back. And I know I want to get a sand color, and I think these are both going to be two reddish browns, but let's find out. And I've got these little brushes. These are water brushes by Derwent. They hold water in the back end. And I'm able to just squeeze a little out because that is dry. I'm able to use this to paint, and neither of the, one of those colors is kind of okay. I'll leave that one out as a possibility. That one is way too brown though. Melissa says they're watercolors. Didn't know that. Neat. They are not watercolor. They are water-soluble graphite. So definitely different there. Let's see what some of these other colors look like on this paper. Testing this one out. That might, maybe. I don't know about that. I don't think I'm going to find the exact color I want. I just want to get something that's close to what I'm looking for. Oh, the green's kind of pretty. Let's see with green. Oh, that's way too green. Noah says, it's been a while. When is this Murloc painting coming? I haven't gotten that far yet. I haven't even done the design yet. I need to work on that. Okay, what I need to do is figure out what color is going to work for me here. You can see where the colors are a bit different than what's on the pencil. And they are very different when you lay them down. Like that is really purple, and the back of that looks gray. I would never guess this was going to come out purple if I didn't test it first. So this is why it's so important to test your colors. Yeah, that doesn't look anything like the back of that pencil. So you can see where testing that out was a big deal. JPC13 Art says, is it true these pencils have extremely poor light fast ratings? Absolutely. However, I don't find them to be as big of a problem. Like, yes, they are not light fast. I'm not going to sell any work that I do with them. I do this for fun, and then I can make prints off of it with no problems. But the thing with the light fast, I was reading a bunch of reviews on these, and people were talking about how they were fading even when not exposed to light. Now, the thing with that is if it's not exposed to light and it's fading, then it's not a light fast issue. There's something else going on. So I was a little bit worried about that, and I stored mine in my portfolio. It's been a year or about a year, I don't remember exactly, and it has not faded one single bit. So I don't think it's quite as severe as, like, people kind of had this panic about them. Oh my gosh, they're going to fade even if they're in your sketchbook. I'm suspecting that that person's sketchbook was not archival, not acid-free. Don't know where their paper was or what else had been on it. I don't know. But mine has, I did my project on Fabriano Artistico. It never faded one bit. So, and it has not been exposed to light. So there's that. And this color might work. I think we'll mix that into the gray. Oh, which one was the gray? Nope, that's not gray. I put it away now. I don't remember which color it was. I do have, I should have got it out. I actually forgot about it. I have a, these two should work okay. I have a color sample, color chart that is really recommended when you're working with Inktense, with the Graphitint, watercolor pencils. That's really, really helpful. I have a really cool one that someone had made for me that I love, and it's over in the thing, and I'm too lazy to go get it. But that's another way you can go so you're not scribbling constantly to see what your colors are going to do. So I think what I'm going to do on these is start with this one and fade out to the other. Are these the right colors? I think I just put down the wrong one. Though that one needs to go back. You are not what I wanted. Which was the one I had that I liked? I'm putting things down and losing them. I've got my colors all over the place. There's the one that I wanted. Okay. Meets Art Gallery says, how much time would it take you to finish the piece if you weren't to be recording it? I could probably have this done in maybe 2 hours total. It's obviously not going to be today because I'll be talking to you guys, but this would probably be this project about a 2-hour project. If I was doing something with a lot of detail, it would definitely take me a lot longer. So I'm just going to start sketching this in here, and I can be pretty messy with this. I'm using the side of the pencil. I do not have to use the same kind of better practice, good practice techniques I would do for colored pencil. The water really blends these out well, so you don't really see your brush strokes or pencil strokes here. So I can be pretty messy, and I'm going to do this in a couple of layers. Now you can see I've got a lot of extra space over here with the whales. This is actually going to get cut off. This is the part of the paper that has the Fabriano Artistico name, which I don't want on the work. So I left that extra space so I could just cut that off. This camera is making it really awkward for me to get to. Sheila says, will these reconstitute each time you add water? Can they reblend it? No, sort of. They don't seem to be quite as permanent as Inktense, but they don't lift as much as watercolor pencils either. Like not even close to how watercolor will reactivate. But they do lift a little bit, so it's kind of in the middle. Seriously, camera, you are really in my way. So if I were doing this and being a little bit more serious and wanting to make something that was going to be my best work ever, I would probably go a little bit slower than what I'm doing, not be quite as sketchy. I think it would look better, or you'll get better results. It'll be a little bit more even, especially if it's something you need smooth like a sky, then I would be a lot more careful with how I was laying this down. But you'll see, I mean, even when I start blending, even the areas that are rough, they do blend out pretty well. Okay, and I'm going to switch to this guy after I sharpen it. Wow, I'm really surprised the chicken's being good back there. I'm surprised he's being quiet. He's been obsessively singing Game of Thrones all day. One of the things that's so nice with these is that you can get the full set. They're fairly inexpensive to get started with, so it's not like you're out a huge investment if you get them and decide you don't like them. They're one of the fun, like I think that they're just a really good way to get started with the idea of using pencils where you're mixing water to see if you like it. And especially if you go to like Hobby Lobby, I don't know with Michael's, but I know with Hobby Lobby, there's, if you get it there with a 40% coupon, it's fairly inexpensive. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and blend this, and then I will come back through with the blue after. And the brush that I'm using to blend this, I want to use a larger one than, actually there's two I'll probably play with or test out. But one of these is a taklon bristle. It is a oval wash. It is that golden taklon. The other is a Master's Touch round. This one's more of a watercolor, like it's a really soft bristle there. And I'm just going to go, and you can see there's a huge color shift from the dry pencil to the paper. So this is why it's so important to test this before you get onto your project in case it's not quite the color you wanted. And I want to go ahead and let there be ripples down here because I'm going to build up the way the light's hitting anyway, so I can do that now with my brush. Meets Art Gallery says, where do you think your creativity comes from? I don't know. A lot of it, honestly, like I look back at stuff I was doing maybe 20 years ago. I wanted to do more surreal stuff and I just wasn't coming up with ideas. And I'm like, okay, even though this is my goal, I don't think I can do this. And what it came down to was I needed more practice. And the more I painted, the more ideas I got. It's like you start training your brain to view the world in a little bit of a different way where you see things differently. So I look at things and think, hey, what if I combine these butterflies in this giraffe? Sure, they don't technically go together in most people's worlds. But the more I painted different things, I would get ideas for different things that I felt were more creative. But it wasn't like an overnight, I instantly am amazing at coming up with ideas. Not that I'm saying I'm amazing now, but not that I was instantly amazing at coming up with the best ideas ever. The more I create, the more ideas I get. And I'm going to be pulling blue way over a lot of this. Noah says, will you be painting, drawing your baby chicken or hermit crabs anytime soon? I have a drawing already printed out for the, or not printed out, but drawn out for the baby chicken. I was going to do it in graphite. I'm kind of tempted to do water soluble graphite now. I haven't decided, but I've just not gotten to it yet. And for the hermit crabs, I'll have to get some photos. The thing with the hermit crabs is it stresses them out. They don't like to be handled by people. So while a lot of people will get them for their kids and let the kids play with them, hermit crabs aren't, I mean, that's kind of like playing with a goldfish. It stresses them out. It's not real healthy for them. So I don't like to take them out to try to get photos. I have gotten some cool photos of them in their little habitat, but, or big habitat, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know with them. Anthony says, how, now you guys make sure you're highlighting my name. You can see how everyone's doing with the @Lachri Fine Art. I'm more likely to see it. If it's not highlighted, I probably won't notice. And there goes the chicken. Hold on, gotta go catch a chicken. Come here, chicken. Stay there. That is probably going to happen several times tonight. But Anthony says, 2 questions. How far in advance do you make your pieces for your videos? Because I work slow. How often should I post work in progress? How much progress should be made on the piece? I would post work on progress every day. Well, post it every day on like Instagram, Facebook, those. But as far as how far in advance, this right now I'm about one video ahead of the week it needs to go live. Normally I get it done a few days before the video needs to go live. So that's just, I'm not normally this far ahead. Claudia says, do you find yourself more motivated and inspired at certain times of the day? It's 3 a.m. here and I'm just about to start working on a commission. That is so me. Night, like 1 a.m. midnight hits and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the mood to paint and draw. Before that, I'm just not there. So I actually have to use the hairdryer for a second. So plug your ears. Actually, we'll mute. No, we won't, because apparently this is not plugged in. 1 second. I'm apparently super prepared tonight. Okay, let me dry this. Now you can see this is starting to warp. Once it dries, it'll be fine because I've got it taped down. So Okay, and we're back. Meets Art Gallery wants to know what kind of art is unappealing to me. That's kind of hard to answer without offending somebody because, well, actually, the simple answer to that would be things that are not based around beauty. I am more drawn to things that are beautiful, wildlife, portraits. I mean, things that are very pretty. Gory stuff, not a huge fan of. That's going to be personal preference because somebody else would think that that was beautiful. So, yeah, I would say pretty things. How's that for a non-answer? Let's see what these colors are going to look like. So I've got the navy, turquoise, and something in the middle. I just want to test these three and get an idea. I think these two, the one that's kind of in the middle, that is the shadow. That one I don't like as much. Okay. Scrolling through here. Eric Draws wants to know what I'm going to do with this drawing. I'm going to stick it in my portfolio. JPC13 Art says, so the Graphitint and the Inktense are not light fast. How are the watercolor pencils light fast rated? So here's the thing, and as far as I know, and I'm going to contact a few companies, as far as I have been able to tell, the light fast ratings seem to be okay until you add water. And even the light fast ratings for like Inktense, those ratings are there for until water is added. Once water is added, it changes how light fast that item is. And I know that that's the case for Derwent, and as far as I know, it's the case for a lot of watercolor or that sort of medium. But it's when I want to contact and find out from different companies what they say about that, because that seems to be the general, like, what people are saying. I have not personally talked to anybody besides Derwent about that, so I'm not certain. I will let you know when I find out. But the ratings that you're seeing are for the dry pencil. So even with the watercolor pencils, I want to check with them. I haven't asked yet. Are those ratings for just the dry pencil like it is for the Inktense? What are the ratings then when wet? Because I know Derwent had said that it's a problem getting an accurate light fast rating or light fast test done when you add water, because it depends on how much how much water the artist adds. That's not really an easy thing to judge or know, like, okay, if you add 50% water, this is going to be your light fast rating. So I'm really not sure with watercolor pencils, or even with the Derwent watercolor pencils. I have no idea at this point. When I find out more information, though, I will definitely be sharing with you guys. Noah says, do you think today's technology, internet, YouTube, has affected the art world? If so, do you like that, or do you prefer the classic art world galleries? I think it has impacted the art world in an amazing, amazing way. I think this is one of the best times in history to be an artist, because what was happening, I mean, I look at back in the 90s when I started with art, unless you went to art school, you weren't going to learn like, that was kind of a problem, finding somebody who could teach you. I mean, even if you went to local classes, they were just hit or miss how great those teachers were. And I mean, that's going to be the case anyway. But now with the internet, you can learn through lessons. I mean, you've got so many amazing artists on Patreon, so you can, for very inexpensive, learn great things. You've got people who do workshops. We just have so many resources available to us now that we didn't used to have. And then as far as being able to sell art online, that's another great thing, because we're no longer limited to galleries. We can set our own rules, our own pricing, we've got a lot more control than what we used to have. And I think that that's an awesome thing, between the fact that we can learn, because like I said, I look back at the 90s, there was no one to really teach me much unless I went to art school. And even that was, as I was told by many artists who did go to art school, they learned more from me, who learned from trial and error, than they did from their teachers at art schools. So yeah, I mean, now there's just so much information that is so easy to access for either free or next to free, that I think now is like one of the best times in the world, or in history, to be an artist. And I'm kind of jealous of you guys that have YouTube now. I wish there was YouTube when I was learning. But I mean, yeah, I love this time in history. And we went through a time too where artists, I mean, you look back at the old masters and you look back at stuff where things were, I mean, the oil paintings that were so realistic and so beautiful, like through the Romantic era and through a lot, I mean, throughout history, that we just had some amazing artwork, and then it seemed to stop. We stopped doing the internships, apprenticeships, that's the word I'm looking for. We stopped doing that, and that really hurt art. People didn't know how to use the materials. People didn't know how to paint. We weren't sharing with anybody how to do like they used to when they would have apprenticeships. And I think that's why the art kind of shifted into a less realistic look. And not that that's a bad thing. I personally prefer more realism, but I think that that's a large part of why that happened, is that we weren't doing that anymore. Well, now with the internet, there's tons of people teaching. So we're kind of getting back to learning from each other, which we seem to have stopped doing for a long time. Scrolling back up. That's another good point Fiddle Joel has. They wouldn't be able to rate them, going back to watercolor pencils or these pencils, any pencils where you're adding water. They wouldn't be able to rate them with water added because water may contain different elements from location to location. Very good point. Where do I store my colored pencil art? Do you have any tips for storing drawings? I do, and I'm going to be making a video very soon about it. I don't think you can, oh, you can kind of see the black bar at the top. I got some new, they're clamshell boxes. And I love them, and I will be showing you how I store them, because I used to just store things in my portfolio. But the problem was when I started working with larger pieces, and especially with Powder Blender is not flexible. You don't want to store that in a, look, by the way, going back to the art, I'm layering my darker blue now on top of the bottom section, so I fade from light to dark. So little thing of what I'm doing there. But with Powder Blender, it's not flexible, so I want to store it flat. I don't want to put it in a portfolio where you turn the page and it bends. So this is my new, the clamshell boxes. You can look up just clamshell boxes. I got mine from Jerry's Artorama, and I'll be doing a full review, because there are things I liked, things I didn't like, so things for you guys to consider when you buy your own, or if you buy your own. But that will be coming fairly soon. What do I think about Winsor & Newton acrylic paint? I've actually not used the Winsor & Newton. It's actually the same company as Liquitex, but I like the Liquitex so much that I have not tried the Winsor & Newton one. I may have to, though. Meets Art Gallery says, which is more important to you, the subject of your painting or the way that it's executed? That is a good question, and it depends on what it is. Ideally, I think that both are important, because one of the things that I see happen a lot is where an artist, especially young artists, we have great ideas, but we're not so great at the technique or the technical side of it. And I've seen a lot where artists will continue with their great ideas, but not continue to improve the technical side, which lessens whatever it is they're trying to say with their art, whatever impact that art could have. So I think it's very important that people focus on both. I don't necessarily think one is more important than the other. I think that they're both important factors in creating work that speaks to people. Abriella says, do you use a digital tablet to edit other people's artwork on the critique series? I do. I have a Wacom, I forget which one it is. I used to use my Samsung Note tablet, the Galaxy Note 10.1 or whatever it was. Now I use the Wacom tablet, and it's much easier, much more accurate to draw. I actually liked the Note tablets from Samsung, and I wish they would make them again. I would buy a new one, but they haven't made a new one in years. So I'm afraid they're not going to be doing that anymore, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really, like, I would be, the day that they came out, I would be there picking one. Okay, maybe not the day. I'd wait for some reviews to make sure they don't catch fire. But I love that. But yeah, I use the Wacom tablet now. Funny Dude says, once you are finished with this piece, how do you plan to protect it? I will just throw it in my portfolio, so it won't be exposed to light. So it'll be fine there. Jacob Hansen says, is this going to be a surreal painting or underwater realistic? I guess it would be closer to underwater realistic, but I'm not using any reference photos. I've done enough whales and dolphins that this seemed like a good way for me to just experiment a little bit more with this medium. So it's not going to be super realistic, but it's not really surrealism either. I mean, there are plenty of whales swimming in water similar to this, so I guess I can't claim surrealism here. I could paint a frog or something sitting in the ocean, maybe a bird underwater just looking at the viewer. Then I could call it surreal. Up and coming artists says, are there much art colored pencil that you had experience with? For colored pencils, I've used Luminance, Polychromos, Prismacolor, Lyra Rembrandt. I've been experimenting a little bit with the Marco Refine, whatever. Those are mostly for coloring books. Those are the ones that I have the most experience with. Oh, I've done Derwent Color Soft. But as far as like traditional wax and oil-based pencils, those are what I've experimented with. I have years. I mean, the majority of my experience was actually with Prismacolor. That's what I used for so many years. I recently actually cleaned out my studio, and I came across, I still have my box from 1995 or 94. That's how long I've been doing colored pencil. But I found that original box that still has some of those pencils in it. I was like, oh, back when you guys used to be good. Krista says, I'm trying to figure out how to draw more from observation, but I'm having a difficult time. I usually draw from some type of reference photo. It uses two different parts of the brain. It's not something where if you're good at one, you're instantly good at the other. You have to practice both individually. Drawing from life is very different from drawing from reference photo. And it's not that one is superior to the other. I always hate when someone tries to claim that it is. Not how it works. But yeah, no, that's definitely going to take some practice. You can't think of it as I'm good at the one, so I should instantly be good at the other. It's just practice, just like learning to draw from reference photo. You have to practice to learn to see things three-dimensionally and translate that. Meets Art Gallery says, does any of their paintings have deeper meaning? Any of whose? I think I missed a question there. Sarah says, are the Graphitint pencils permanent like Inktense? Not as permanent as Inktense, but they don't lift as much as watercolor either. If I had to choose one, Polychromos or Luminance, do you... okay, two different questions. If I had to choose one, Polychromos or Luminance, and do I protect graphite or colored pencil? Okay, for Polychromos or Luminance, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a portrait, Luminance hands down. I just like the opacity of getting the skin tones. If I'm doing fine little detail in wildlife, for the most part, Polychromos, but really, I don't want to really choose between one or the other because I like them both so much. So that's that one. The other question was, do I protect my graphite or colored pencil? Graphite, I do use a spray. I have one by Krylon. Dang it, that's what I meant to order. I want to try some different sprays. But I do have a spray by Krylon that I use it helps to prevent it from smudging much if somebody were to touch it. So that's how I protect that colored pencil. The way that I use it doesn't need it. Unless I'm using powder blender, then I use the final fixative there. This is going to take a couple layers to really get as dark as I want. And I actually kind of want my brush strokes to show on this one. I want a much looser feel than you guys typically see me do. I want it to look almost like watercolor. That's my goal anyway. We'll see if that happens. I hear you talking back there. That was the start of Adam's family for a second there. He just didn't finish it. Hi, chicken, chicken. That's actually what he's saying there is hi, chicken, chicken. It's just not very clear. Hi, chicken, chicken. Oops, I need to scroll down a little bit. Mike says, have you been able to find more of the 4B lead like you're using, or is it discontinued? I got the Stein by mistake, and it doesn't seem to be as dark. Yeah, the Stein is not the same. The AN4B lead, it's the... I have to look at it. I forget which one it is. The poly something. Somebody help me here. I forget the name of it. They're in the drawer over there. I'm not using that at all tonight. But no, as far as I can tell, it's no longer available, unfortunately. And yeah, the Stein, definitely not the same. This gives you kind of a nice, I'm really liking the look of these, how they just seem so soft. I'll do this in a couple of layers. Dennis says, are you planning to do more wildlife art pieces such as tigers and leopards in colored pencil? Of course. Nad wants to know where I got my chicken. I got him from a local breeder who hand-fed him, and so he's like the sweetest little bird in the history of birds. He's been a really cool little bird. Apparently he looks just like his dad from what she said. Meets Art Gallery says, how do you feel when you are letting your emotions loose on the canvas? I don't even know how to answer that. I don't typically work that way. I work in a way where I guess when I like emotions or something I'm trying, like a feeling I'm trying to capture comes out in the initial design, but the actual, once I hit the canvas, then that's all technical. For me, in the way that I work, the design, I may be, have a feel I'm trying to get across, but not so much on the actual sitting at the easel and painting. By that point, whenever I sit at the easel, I generally know what's going to happen. I've done this for so long. It's just kind of a technical going through the motions thing. Debbie wants to know if my brush is relatively dry. My pictures tend to get muddy. I am just beginning with watercolor pencils. Well, with watercolor, it's going to be a little bit different because, would you stop with the car alarm? The watercolor is going to be a little bit different because they reactivate and lift. This one's not going to lift as much. So with watercolor, you've got to be very careful, very controlled in where you're planning to put stuff because of that. So here, my brush is very, very wet, and a lot of it too will have to do with the paper that you're using. I have a really cool watercolor pad that I recently got, and it's fun to work on, but it's also like painting on a rock. And that one, I'm just going to wash some of this color over the whites of the whales because I need that to be there anyway. But with that one, I have to use a ton of water to get it to even move. With this one being a hot press watercolor paper, I don't need nearly as much. So right now though, I do have quite a bit on the paper. And a lot of that with the muddy colors comes down to practice too. Getting used to what can go next to what, how things will blend in with each other, that sort of thing. Savino says, what paper are you using? And for Prismacolor, do you recommend the colorless blender or something else? I'm using Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press Watercolor Paper, and all of the supplies I'm using are listed in the video description with links to Amazon, so if you want to see the actual product, you can look over there. And really, do we have to do a car alarm right now? What was the other question? I got distracted by my car alarm behind me. For Prismacolor, what do I recommend, the colorless blender or something else? I started with the colorless blender. I had to stop though because it was really hard on my wrist. I was having a lot of problems, a lot of pain with the arthritis in my wrist. So I switched over to odorless mineral spirits. That definitely gave me results I liked the best for what I was trying to accomplish. High polymer, yes, that's what it was. Thank you. I just missed who, it scrolled up too fast. I saw who said it, or missed who said it. Whoever said that, you're awesome. It's the AN4B high polymer lead that I like so much with graphite that you can't get anymore. I think you can get the 3B though. If you can, that should still be decent. The Stein is a much harder lead, like really hard. And so it seems to scratch my paper more than anything. You can see how I'm pulling that right into the whales because I'm going to need that to show for later. I probably won't get to the whales tonight. My main goal is to work on the background and the bottom section here. Scrolling up. Googly Sketches says, how did you build your brand as an artist? I painted and drew nonstop. And then YouTube really helped me because I was able to, it get me on a schedule. It was like I dedicated myself to having a new painting or drawing. I've got to let this dry now. Having a new painting or drawing every week. And so that made a big difference. And then that's really where I started building the foundation. I started with Facebook. Facebook was much slower. Then I moved more into YouTube, and that grew a lot faster. People like to watch and get lessons. So that's really what that was. And I mean, there's just so much to do with branding, but those are where I started, is Facebook, eventually Instagram and Twitter, but mainly Facebook and YouTube were my two big things that I focused on. Tamara wants to know what my connection to orcas. I personally love them and wanted to know why you draw them. I don't know. They just have always made me feel happy. And when I was younger, would you stop with the car alarm, chicken? When it just cracks me up. when I was younger, when I was a teenager and I was dealing with depression, I was living, I had my abusive biological dad I was having to deal with. I don't know, there was just something about orcas. I would paint them and that brought me so much peace. And still to this day, there's just something about them that I just love looking at that just makes me so, so very happy. And I think it kind of goes back to that. For some reason, that's what I connected to back then, and it just stuck with me. Nad wants to know if I think abstract art is lazy or do you like it? It depends. I know of several artists who started doing abstract because they wanted to be artsy but didn't want to learn technique. They were lazy. However, I've seen abstract that is stunning and I would love to have on my walls. So it depends on the artist. And I think it's like anything. I mean, you can have people who are lazy in any style, but I definitely have seen a lot, especially young artists, where they just wanted to feel like artists. They like the idea of being an artist, but not the idea of doing the work to learn the medium, to learn how to do things. Claudia Sketches says, what's the worst backhanded compliment you've received on your art, or at least something somebody said trying to be nice but completely missed the point? Oh gosh, I don't know. I may have to think about that one and come back to you on that one. And there goes Game of Thrones starting. What was that? That's not even a song. You're mixing things up. It's the chicken remix. Yeah, that's still wet. That's gonna make sure when you're working with this that you let it dry all the way before you put your next layer. You'll damage the tooth of the paper with the pencil scraping on it. So that's what we're waiting for now. Let's see, backhanded compliment. I'm still trying to think. Maybe somebody telling me that a portrait I did looked like somebody and it wasn't the right person. I've only had that a couple. Actually, the Scarlett Johansson one, when everyone said it looked like Scully from X-Files. It was like, wow, it really does. They weren't wrong, but it was the wrong artist or wrong. It's not what I was trying to do. I'll think of something else later. Bree says, oops, where did it go? Scrolling. My computer's being weird with the scroll right now. Ah, chicken, come here. Get back up there. Sit up there and be good. Be a calm chicken. I'm having to scroll up right now. Sorry, that's what the pause is. I lost it. My computer didn't want to... I started reading one and missed it. Here we go. Bree says, are Liquitex Basics good for beginners trying to get into acrylics, or do you recommend another brand for beginners? I love Liquitex Basics. They are definitely one of my favorites. They work for what I do in my techniques. It's not that I'm going to say they're the best paint in the world. It depends on what you're trying to do. And for me, those are my preference. So yeah, I think they're a great way to get started. Noah says, now that you are an established artist, you have a large following, do you receive a lot of criticism? Is it less than it used to be? It's weird. People who know art are more respectful. Like when I've talked to people at galleries, or I talk to, different venues that are actually people involved in art and know what they're talking about, much more respectful. However, on YouTube tends to be a little bit different, and you get, especially a lot of kids, but no, I can't even say that because I know some of these are adults that say things and you're like, they think that for some reason that I'm famous when I'm not. I mean, I'm like you guys, and I get people who think that it's kind of like commenting when on a forum going, oh, I like this actor, I don't like this actor, they did a terrible job acting, but that actor's never going to read that comment. They'll leave these comments on my page, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that, guys. I see what you just said. It's really inconsiderate and rude. And then you get the kids who, I mean, I had a drawing the other day, somebody was giving me a hard time on a how to draw hair tutorial, and they were saying, well, we need to see your reference photo so we can judge if your proportions are correct. I'm like, wait, what? This is how to draw hair texture. It doesn't matter what the proportions were. It wasn't trying to look exactly like, so that was kind of funny. But I get a lot of people who are not professional artists. They don't really know much about art, but they want to criticize people on YouTube because, I don't know, it makes them feel fancy. So yeah, it goes both ways for sure. Meets Art Gallery says, when you first started your YouTube channel, did you get negative feedback? And yes, then what inspired you to keep going without giving? I've got a few, not much. I mean, not as many people were seeing the video, so I didn't get nearly what I do now. Now I get a lot of, most of the negative feedback I get is because I talk fast. that's just how I talk. That's not, it's like telling me to grow 2 inches. It's not going to happen. Actually, that would be easier because I could wear heels and feel like I was taller. But this is just how I talk. Caffeine, no caffeine, doesn't matter. I can be half asleep and I still talk this fast. That's just how I talk. So I get that a lot, and that can get frustrating, but you get used to it. Luckily, I think with me, because the YouTube grew so slowly, it helped me to develop that thick skin a little bit better. Like slowly over time. It wasn't all at once everyone being mean to me. I think that would have been a little bit harder. Now it's like I read these and I'm just like, whatever. No one cares what you think. So let's see. Phyllis says, did you get a chance to send out the Patreon postcards? Can't wait to send. They're sitting here. I meant to send them with my husband to send when he went to work today, on his way to work, and I totally forgot. So they will go out tomorrow. That's the December postcards I just ordered. I'm so behind. Just ordered January and February's postcards. My goal is to get the labels done for January's postcards, because now is the time January should go out. So I wouldn't be late if I was doing January right now. But January postcards I want to get labeled to this weekend. The postcards should be here next week, so I'll get them stamped and sent out hopefully soon. One of my goals is to stop being so late on those. I've been horrible, and I hate the feeling of, oh crap, I've got to get the postcards sent out. Oh, I haven't done the postcards yet. I totally forgot. So my goal is going to prioritize that a little bit more. So that will hopefully get to everybody sooner. But yes, December cards are going out tomorrow. And then in the next 2 weeks, the January cards will be going out. So those ones aren't really late. Jacqueline says, do you find having a studio at home, do you find having your studio at home that you've isolated yourself? I like to be isolated. It makes me happy. So I don't know that that's a bad thing. I mean, yeah, it's not the same as like when I worked in an animal hospital where I was going to work and being around people, but it was usually around people I didn't really want to be around. So this is better. This is way better. And I can just chat to you guys online. I actually like you guys. So this works out perfect for me. I've always been someone who enjoyed being alone and working alone. I like having my animals around with me. That makes me happy. So I don't feel isolated. I know some artists have complained about that, but it just makes me happy. And then I have the days that my husband is off. We go and do our errands. So I get out of the house those days, but most of the time I am perfectly happy to be here from the time I get up till the time I go to sleep. Tamara says, thank you for sharing that with me. I used to have dreams about orcas when I was a little girl, and I had a difficult childhood also. Perhaps they are a spirit animal. Possibly. And I used to see, this is going back to the question about why I draw orcas so often. There was an artist who, I think this is largely where it stemmed from. He would draw, he had orcas and humpback whales a lot swimming through space. And I don't know, those just spoke to me. That just meant something to me. And so I wanted mine. I'm mostly painted in the water, but I don't know. That's kind of where it started to me. It touched me, and it was just like, this is what I want to do. And it really helped me a lot during that time. Mara Black says, I think your chicken is concerned about you talking to an empty room. I think he's used to it, honestly. I'm not going to talk to him because he's being good right now. He'll get distracted and try to fly over on my shoulder if I do. Let's see. Ralph Williamson says, do you have a site I can send you a picture for critique? The critique is lachri.com/critiques, but there's like a 2 week, I wish, 2 month waiting list. So you're not going to get a response from me anytime in the near future. If you want tips from people sooner, then you can head over to our Facebook or our Google Plus pages. You just look up Lachri Artist Group on either of those and you should find us. And you'll have artists there who can give you some advice. I barely have enough time to get each week done videos and such. So I don't have time to offer advice to people as much as I would like to. It's just not possible. So, yeah, you can sign up for critique there, but it's not going to be anytime soon that I will get to you on that. Nad says, have you ever tried any cartoon style drawing? Because I think you'd be 100%. Yes, kind of. I've done some with the Smart Art Box, and when I was younger, I used to like to draw those. I switched the wrong pencil. We'll switch back. When I was younger, I used to draw that way, but I don't know. It's not where my main interest lies. So you can see how I'm pulling this color down, even though this is going to be the darker blue here. I'm also pulling it down into where the sand goes. I want this to fade. I don't want a harsh line where the sand starts and stops. Jen says Robert Lynn Nelson. You know what? I'm going to look that up right now, because I'm curious, because I never knew who the artist was. I'm going to be so happy if you found, nope, this isn't him. He's awesome, but that's not the artist who I looked at. Oh, I love his work though. Gosh, he's amazing. But no, that's not the artist whose work I was really drawn to when I was younger. I mean, I would have been drawn to his work too, but the artist that I'm talking about with the space, it was somebody else. It's kind of funny. When I was younger, I had a toy box, and I was probably 15 at the time that I started doing this. I had a toy box that I took, and I mean, I no longer have, well, I've always had a lot of stuffed animals, but I didn't need the toy box anymore, so I flipped it upside down. It was something that was handmade. It wasn't, not like a nice one. It was just 5 pieces of plywood hammered together and painted. I flipped it upside down, and I took artwork by that guy. It was in calendars, and I lined the entire top of the toy box with old sheet music. And then I put the calendars, I glued those over it. And then I had this clear plastic, you know, the bags that your comforter comes in, or like when you buy new comforters. I had one of those, and I covered it with that to seal it. And then I used that as my art table. I'd sit on the floor, before I had back problems. I would sit on the floor and draw. And the other thing, and I would work on stuff like that. I would have kind of new agey music where you could hear whales singing in the background. I've always loved that sound. And then I had this potpourri that I had gotten at like CVS Pharmacy or something like that. I don't know what it was back then, or Walgreens. But it was this peach potpourri in the atmosphere, the smell, the sounds, and this table that I loved the sheet music. I've played in orchestra since I was a kid, so I had tons of old sheet music that was just copies, not like the originals. And it was like my happy place back then. And to this day, I am still trying to find a copy of, or not a copy, but a replacement for that smell of peach. No peach I've smelled is quite the same, but I'm constantly, like for years now, have been on the look for that smell, because it used to make me so happy. I love that smell of peach. Meets Art Gallery says, can you use water with Prismacolor to blend them out? Nope. They are oil-based, wax-based. They will not, nothing will happen if you add water to it besides your paper getting messed up. You can use odorless mineral spirits, though. Now these I find when I sketch out with these Graphitint pencils versus Inktense, these seem to go down smoother and softer. They blend more like watercolor does, where you don't end up with so much of that grainy, gritty look that you can get with Inktense. Like Inktense, I like to paint the blocks where I make my mixture with a paintbrush and then use that mixture with water and apply it directly with the brush, or from the brush to the paper. With this, it blends out softer so that it's more like watercolor, where you don't really see, you can see here where it's blended right on pencil. It's not gritty or grainy at all. You get a really nice soft look with these. Jen says the other one she can think of is Christian Rice Lassen. Nope, not him. Him I am very familiar with. Claudia Sketches says, I'd love to draw some shoulder chicken fan art. May I use photos of him you've uploaded for Instagram as reference? Absolutely. And make sure you share them. I've had a couple of people who have drawn little sketches with the shoulder chicken on my shoulder. They're so cute. I love that. That's so fun. Savino says, I know someone answered this, but I still have the same problem. I'm drawing this lion and it looks so orange and yellow. What would you do? Add its complementary color. So if it's too orange, you can add, I say blue, but you're probably going to get muddy. Try this on a separate piece of paper. Orange and blue tend to muddy up depending on the tone of orange and the tone of blue. But you can try adding a little bit of purple, a little bit of magenta. Try adding a color like that over it to neutralize it so that it's not so, wow, that's orange. And yellow. Unless you're drawing birds, you are pretty much never going to use the color yellow in an animal. Almost ever. Very, very rarely. Birds, butterflies, that's about it. Yellow is not a natural tone. Like where you're doing lions, there's no yellow. That's not yellow. It's going to be like browns, grayish browns, that sort of thing. Avoid yellow when you can. Whoops, I just scrolled down too far and lost some of these. Mara says, I bought a huge sheets of individual Stonehenge paper. Do I have to prep it for colored pencils? If you're using odorless mineral spirits, nope, just go to town and draw your work. Meets Art Gallery says, what kind of what kind of pencil colors is she using? I missed the beginning of the video. These are Derwent Graphitint. They are listed in the video description. Nad says, have you ever accidentally messed up a drawing and had to do the whole thing over again? Because I did this one time and almost cried. Yes, I have. Where either something gets spilled on it or you put a hole in the paper. I have definitely had that happen, and it's one of those things where you just feel so much better when you're finally caught up to where you were in the first place. I try to look at it when that has happened and I had to redo something as, okay, that was practice. Here's the real one. I'm going to take what I learned from that one before I screwed it up and apply it to the good one. So yes, I have had that happen. Dennis says, when and for what things would you recommend using the Lyra Rembrandt colored pencils? I like them for backgrounds. I think that would be the most useful for me when blending with odorless mineral spirits. I found that they laid down quickly and the color blended so nice. I did not like them for fine detail like I do polychromos. They don't layer quite as well, but I loved the look that I got for getting a smooth background. Like just this nice, softly blended, let's say I was doing a bokeh background, those would be great for that. Meets Art Gallery says, are you thinking about collaborating with another YouTuber soon? Lena Dania and I had talked about that a couple months ago, and I think both of us have been too busy and haven't gotten around to getting further than that. I know that I've got a group of art friends that we did the Valentine's Day collaboration with. Some of us are going to be doing an Easter one, and that's pretty much all I have planned right now. Noah says, don't forget you were referred to as squeaky voice master lady in my art master lady in my house. I see, and that going back to the compliments, the backhanded compliments, part of me thinks that that's kind of a backhanded one, but it cracks me up. I think it's an awesome compliment, so I don't even know. Let's see. This our drawing says, have you ever, oops, scrolling too fast. Have you ever tried the Mitsubishi hand crank pencil sharpener? I have not, but maybe I should buy one. Do you have trouble, do you have tendonitis or carpal tunnel before? Have you ever had, I have arthritis in this wrist. It was actually giving me problems last night. I was worried about drawing today, but it seems to be okay now. I had soda the day before, and that sugar is just, I cheat and then I pay for it. But the sugar definitely makes it worse for me, sugar and carbs. But it seems to be doing okay right now. Elijah says, please collaborate with Lena Dania. Yeah, I'll have to talk to her. We haven't come up with what we wanted. Like, we started talking about it, but we never came up with like what we actually wanted to paint or draw. So we'll have to see. Don't talk to the barking dog outside. Don't encourage it. Not my barking dogs, by the way. Mine are sleeping in their bed. So see how, again, I'm just overlapping into the sand. I don't want the sand to be this sandy. They just lay down so smooth. I love these pencils. I don't know why I've only worked with them once before, because I loved them then too. They're just so quick and I think that's one of the reasons too that I'm more tolerant of the fact that they're not light fast and that I wouldn't sell the original. Artwork I do with them is not going to take me that long. This is kind of quicker stuff. If I'm going to put something that's super realistic, not that these couldn't do it, but with those I would go with a colored pencil or something that was more light fast. But these just are so fast. Like the work that I have done here, if I wasn't sitting here chatting with you guys, I'd be a lot further along. So I'm giving the illusion that it takes forever. It doesn't. It really, these lay down so fast and they're just so nice and smooth. Phyllis says, Shoulder Chicken is being so quiet with his back to you. What's he up to? He's got a toy. If I look at him, he gets all excited and thinks that's my calling him to me. But I'm trying to slowly look behind me. He has a toy he's playing with right now. We've been working with him for the last couple of weeks, getting him to stay on his perch, that perch there that's normally in the other room. And he's got a really big cage with this nice playpen on the top that he never gets to go on top of because he always instantly jumps and tries to go sit with us. And part of me is like, that's so cute that he wants to sit with us. How do you not give him what he wants? That's adorable. But the other part of me is like, he's always either in his cage or with us. I can't have him be free. I'd like to leave him out or the door open almost all the time. I would prefer never to have him closed up. But he won't stay on the cage and he'll go and get and sit on and chew on wires and stuff. So we've been working with him on getting him used to staying on the branch, and he's doing really good the last week or so. Meets Art Gallery says, do you have a P.O. box? And in total, how many pets do you have? I do have a P.O. box. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. It's something in Capel. If you go into my website, lachri.com, and sign up for my email newsletter, that newsletter has my P.O. box at the bottom of it. How many pets do I have? I have 2 Italian Greyhounds, the shoulder chicken, and a couple of hermit crabs. Simon says, do you mix pencil brands when you work on one piece? Normally, yes, unless I'm doing a review on a specific type of pencil, then I just use that pencil. But normally, yes, I like to mix and take the best of all the worlds. Best of all the worlds. I don't think I worded that right. You guys know what I mean. Whoops, scrolled too far. Nad says, why do you draw orchids so much? They're cool. Well, we already talked about that lately. They're just something that I've always liked. You can back up the video and watch that. So I won't bore people with answering it the same question twice. But basically, I love them. There's the short answer. Mara says, the paper you're using now, can you use it with acrylics? You could. I don't like to use acrylics, or acrylics on paper. I don't like the results that I get. I don't like what it does to the water. I don't like how it soaks into the water. It doesn't work for glazing. For the techniques I use for acrylics, paper is not a good choice. But that's just for how I work. I have seen where artists did amazing things with acrylics on paper. I'm just not one of those. So as you can see, I've left an area that's a little bit lighter. Actually, dab some of that off. Oh, that looked weird. But I've left that intentionally lighter so that it'll kind of be like rays of light coming through. Although I have a feeling I'll end up using Inktense or something like that to create more rays of light later. Krista says, I do a lot of self-portraits and people call it narcissistic. And an ironic twist, I don't like my face. I think the thing they miss when viewing my work is the emotion in each piece. Thoughts? I know another artist who does a lot of self-portraits too, and sometimes we are our best model. We're always available, and it's easy to catch the emotion that we want because we can make the look on our face that we want. I don't see it as being narcissistic at all. It's not unusual for an artist to regularly use themselves as a model. I did when I was younger. A lot of the fairy stuff that I've done, I used myself as a model, not because I was narcissistic in any way. It was because I was available to take photos and none of my friends were. Dennis says, for signing works in colored pencil, do you sign it with a titanium white touch-up texture or a colored pencil? It depends on what it is. If I really want it to show up over dark, then yeah, the touch-up texture titanium white mixture works the best. If it's something like I just finished that macaw that I was working on, if you've been on Instagram, you've seen me post pictures of that, or on my newsletter today, I posted a photo of it. I used a black colored pencil because it was up against a light area. I'm probably going to do a few more layers like this and just keep darkening this water bit by bit. Just because I think right now, if I left it this light, I don't think I'd like how bright or how dark the whales will be, although I can lighten them up. Decisions. No, I think I want to go dark on this. So I'll probably do quite a few layers until I get it where I want it. Not having a reference photo makes you feel pretty free to just decide, hey, what colors do I like? Not worry about that photo. Normally, I recommend using a reference photo, but like I said before, in this case, I painted hundreds or thousands of orcas and underwater scenes, so something simple like this I don't need reference photos for. If I was painting coral and detailed fish, then yeah, I would have reference photos, but this I don't. And I just sketched these out to get the shape of the whale. I just watched some videos on YouTube while I sketched just to get kind of the movement and the motion. But it's not an actual copy from any one thing. But watching videos of how an animal moves, how it swims in this case, really can be helpful in you capturing that movement in your artwork. Ron Roberts says, I saw the video with you, Mark. Whoops, where'd it go? Mark and Fine Art Tips. Mark Criley and Fine Art Tips. Cool. that was a fun video to do. Like a lot of fun. It was so cool talking to artists that I just look up to and respect so much. I kind of fangirled out a little. Maffy Wu says, do you own any sketchbooks? If you do, would you ever do a sketchbook tour? I actually am working on one, and when I finish that, I will share with you guys. But one of my goals is to start using it more, and especially with stuff like these, with the Graphitint, with watercolor pencils, with Inktense. I really want to use those more for quick sketches. And yes, when I fill that up, I will be sharing that with you guys. I shared the first picture, and I'll be sharing as I work on Instagram, but I'll do a full video when it's all full. Art by Criley says, is the artist Wyland? Nope. Bigelow Fine Art says, have you tried colored pencil on Yupo with the Winsor markers? I did. I did that on a clownfish. If you look up my clownfish marker video, I went over it with colored pencil. Loved, loved, loved the result of those markers with colored pencils so much. The Luminance, was it the Luminance, I believe, worked the best. Madison Dobbs says, I am drawing the Patreon challenge photo right now with the brush and pencil kit on sanded paper. But, oh, it just scrolled. Where did it go? But every time I spray the fixative spray, my color keeps going dull. Any tips? I'd have to see what you were doing. If you want to post photos of what it looks like before you spray and what it looks like after for me, that can help. It could be a few things. You may be over blending stuff. You may not be spraying often enough. It's hard for me to tell by that amount of information. But post some photos over on maybe Patreon, or you can post it in our Patreon group and I'll take a look at it. Claudia Sketches says, have you used the metallic mediums before for details on a painting, i.e. metallic, acrylics, pencils, etc.? What do you think of them? I've used metallic for some acrylic stuff that I've done because I needed a gold tint, like for certain designs. I did, a neighbor had me paint this little refrigerator for his man cave with his favorite football team, and I needed gold for that, or silver. I don't remember which. It was a metallic. I like to make gold look gold based on how I do the lighting, not based on gold paint. However, I've seen people do gold leafing, and I think it's one of the most gorgeous things in the world, and I think I might want to learn how to do it because, oh, now that look I love. But, yeah, so I can't really give much opinion on it other than I have not done it much. Lexi says, what do you think of the Caran d'Ache Pablo colored pencils? Do you recommend them, and how do they compare to Polychromos and Luminance? I mean, I'm on the board with it. I love them on sanded paper for final details with powder blender. So I am going to get a full set. As far as on their own, I don't like them as a standalone pencil. They're too waxy for my taste. I don't like the white one at all, except for powder blender. It's on my must-have list now. With sanded paper, it works so nicely. But for working with odorless mineral spirits, I like some of them. Like I was using the black on my macaw. It's a very dull black compared to Polychromos black, but it worked pretty well. Some of the colors I like better than others, but they're very, very waxy, which typically I don't like. So it depends on what I'm doing. I would not run out and buy those as like a standalone. I think Polychromos works well as a standalone. I think Luminance work well as a standalone. I don't think the Pablos do. The Pablos I think are best when combined with other pencils for just certain things they work nicely for. Is the artist Jim Moran? Let me look that up. No. They were very dark space, not like planets. Most of them didn't have, I think there were some planets, but most of it was like the galaxy, like a loose galaxy, almost abstract-y looking. And like some of his humpback whales weren't even blue. They were yellow or gold and just gorgeous. Carissa says, I am a new artist. How do I know when my work is quality enough, ready to be sold? Try listing it on eBay. If people buy it, you're probably ready. If people don't buy it, you're either not ready or you're not marketing enough on your social media. But when people are ready to buy, then you're ready to sell. I mean, that's kind of a good general rule, I think. Now it says, have you ever sculpted something before? I have. I'm not very good at it. I've not done it enough to really get good at it. I think with anything, anyone can learn to do well with stuff like that. I just haven't taken the time. I am going to mute this for just a moment while I dry this. Maybe. Onyx wants to know if I've ever worked with pen pastels, soft pastels, or pastel pencils. Yes, but I don't like them. I don't like how they feel on my hands. No, I don't. They're not. I love how they look. Not my favorite medium. It's one of the reasons that I like working with the powder blender so much with colored pencil. You get a very similar look to what you get with with pastels, without so much of the mess. So more layering. You can see I'm going right over the whales. I don't care if blue gets on them because that's going to be so much darker later anyway. Courtney says it's the artist Thomas Deere. Let me see. Oops, I think I just spelled that wrong. Thomas Deere, let's try that. I don't think so. No. Mara says, can you use oil paint over polychromos, like using white oils for whiskers, etc.? Technically, yes, but you're talking about oil and paper, and it's going to soak in a weird way, and I would not like the results there. You can try it, practice with it. It's not something I've ever done because I hate how oil behaves with paper so much. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it should be better than acrylics as far as archival qualities go. But again, you're talking about getting oil on paper, and that could cause some not so great reactions later on. Anthony says, did my husband know about Mark Crilley's comics? He did. He actually did. And he commented when I gave him the name, he's like, yeah, I don't think it's the same person because that one does manga. I'm like, then that's the same person. It is. So yes, he doesn't have any, but he was familiar with his work. So that was pretty cool. Now, if I really cared about these whales, let's say they were going to be bright red. Well, that kind of looked neat. But let's say they were going to be bright red. I would have probably used masking fluid or something to protect them so that I didn't get this all over it. But they need to be blue anyway. So I can be pretty loose and pretty messy and not worry about that at this point. But if you are worried about that, if you're doing something that you need something super detailed and you need the paper to stay white, you can get masking fluid. And I do have videos talking about how to use that. If you look up Lachri and masking fluid, a tutorial will come up for you. Claudia Sketches says, have you ever been inspired by something that you saw or experienced in a dream? Yeah, a lot of my paintings, actually, I can't think of any off the top of my head now, but a lot of the concepts that I've had came from, oops, wrong pencil, came from dreams. Or it's really mostly the stage in between being awake and asleep. But like one that I can think of, this was an old one, but I had a painting where the water was red, and this was from a dream. It was the red water, and there were dolphins swimming through that red water, and just like the background was like all crumbly, like kind of pillars, stuff you'd see from like Rome, where the Colosseum or where things are damaged, and that was what I saw in the dream, and so I did paint that one. But I know I've had quite a few, just different things like things that a bird was sitting on that they wouldn't make sense, stuff like that. Adam McHugh says, do I have any basic tips for beginners? Practice. Lots and lots. In this matter, no matter what medium you're in, don't expect to be amazing right off the bat. Like, you're going to see artwork from other artists who you admire and think, okay, I want to create that, so that's what I'm going to do. Great. That is what you will do, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. So my biggest tip for beginners is don't be too hard on yourself. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are a part of learning the medium. It's a part of becoming an artist. Be willing to experiment. Be willing to look at what you've created and say, okay, this and this and this are where I can improve. Like pinpoint, I think I want to improve on my lighting. I want to improve on this or that. And those are probably my biggest tips for a beginning artist. And just really be willing to experiment. Don't be so afraid to make mistakes that you won't do anything. You're going to learn so much faster by making mistakes than you will by trying not to make mistakes. Tamara says, how many layers do you anticipate this will take to get as dark as you want? I don't know. This is my only second time working on this, so I really have no idea. I'm just going to layer until I like how it looks, basically. If I hit a layer where I'm like, done, this is exactly what I want, then I'll stop. Shinji says, I'm a beginner for working in Faber-Castell Polychromos 60 set. Would you recommend them for making some outlines and blending them for another colored pencil? Blending them for another colored pencil, huh? When I don't know if this answers your question, but when I draw, I will draw with a 4H or lighter graphite pencil, very, very light hand, and then I just use my colored pencil over that. Mara Black says, if you wanted to add coral to this, can you, or is it too late now with all the layers? Yeah, I probably could. I wouldn't be able to get white very well. Actually, let's see how well their white pencil shows up. I don't remember. I don't remember it doing much. I think it was kind of like, I don't know. Let's see. I'm actually going to try the white on this. Okay, if I push hard, it shows up. Let's see what happens if I just lightly push and then add water. Nothing. We'll see what that looks like when it dries. My plan is either to take ink, I have some India ink here, or white Inktense for a lot of the highlights on here. So in that case, yeah, I could take that, put my white, and then put the pencil on top of it. If I was going darker to darker colors, then yeah, adding coral would be no problem, especially if I wanted to do like a silhouette where it was really dark. That would be pretty easy to do. Nat says, hey, this is a bit random, but you are wise. I have a decision to go into Excel math, but I don't know if I should because I know it affects you in college badly sometimes. I'm not the one to talk to there. Go talk to your school counselor and see what's going to be best for you. I really don't know anything about that. Kitsune says, have you tried other watercolor pencils besides the Inktense? I tried the little kind of generic-y ones that came in that Smart Art box. And then, yeah, just the Derwent ones so far. Now, see, Inktense are not watercolor pencil. I think that's something that's important to point out. Inktense are water-soluble ink, not watercolor. These are water-soluble graphite, not watercolor. So there is quite a bit of a difference there. So I've been playing around a little bit with the Derwent watercolor, but that's it so far. Eric Draw says, how much is it okay to trace? Does it affect you negatively? I find with every student I have worked with that it affected them positively, that their freehanding skills improved because of tracing, because it started to teach their eye to see things accurately. And the goal with tracing is not to forever only be able to trace. The goal with tracing is to improve your freehanding skill. I mean, it should help you to notice things and see things you weren't previously seeing. I've just seen it help so many artists. And for me, it got to the point, and I still this is freehanded. I still freehand a lot, but, and I don't normally point out when something is freehanded or traced because you can't tell the difference. And it gets to the point where you're so confident, or I don't know what the word is, competent, accurate with your freehanding skills, that the tracing, it's like, why take the time? It's going to take so much longer. I want to do whatever I need to save time so I can create more artwork. The end result is the same whether I trace or I freehand. And most artists hit that point. But I've never seen it affect someone negatively as long as they continue to practice freehanding too. Max says, have you tried the Liquitex ink? I've not, but they sent me some. They sent me some of their muted colors. I really, really want to try it over, and I don't know if you're supposed to mix these two, so I'm going to have to find out. I want to try dripping some of the ink on the Liquitex pouring medium. And I just got a bunch more of the soft-bodied acrylics to use with the pouring medium, and I want to try mixing the two. So I will be doing some experimentation there, and we'll see what happens. So I own it, but I haven't tried it yet. I have so many things I want to try. I've been working on kind of knocking out some of my to-do list things that I've been putting off. Like, I'm going to be doing a studio tour. I'll probably record it the next week or two. I've got to go for an art convention thing where I'm demonstrating some stuff. So I won't be, it's not a public one. It's a, like, for art retail. So I don't know. That's coming up soon. So I'm kind of focused on getting ready for that. But after that, I've got stuff like my new studio tour I'll be doing. I want to do a lot of stuff showing you guys, like I talked about this last week, where I want to show you some of the tech gear that I think is really helpful for making videos for artists. So that is coming soon. Rachel wants to know if I've ever owned fish. Yes, I used to have a reef tank. Had freshwater. I had freshwater most of my life. And then I had my saltwater reef tank for a long, long time. So with the coral and all the fun stuff. I miss it, but I do not miss taking care of it. And I don't have time to maintain something like that. And I hated the stress of every time power went out. It was like, oh crap. Are my anemone gonna die? Is this gonna happen? So I someday I do want to get another one. It'll be when I'm in a house where I'm gonna be more permanent. I'm in an apartment right now, so moving something like that is not ideal. But I want to eventually get one. Hopefully I'll be able to hire somebody to take care of it for me, though, to do water changes and such. With my back now, there's no way I could lift the water anymore anyway, just for doing the cleanings. So yes, I used to have them, and I absolutely loved them. Someday I'll have more. Jetstream says, have you ever drawn a hamster? No, I have not. Hamsters are adorable, but no, I don't think I've ever drawn one. I may have done some cartoony ones when I was younger, because as a kid I had hamsters. As a kid I had like every animal ever. You would think it sounds like a hoarding situation, but my mom was also a clean freak. So everything was very, very organized and very clean. Well, except for my bedroom. So I'm using a lot of water here. I like that loose look that it gives. I am so surprised at how quiet that chicken is being. This is the quiet he's been like his entire life. Maybe he was quieter in an egg. That was probably the only time he's ever been this quiet. Did you fall? There you go. I need to wrap some rope, some thin rope around parts of that branch, because sometimes he has a hard time gripping it. It's meant for a bigger bird than him. So if I add some rope, it'll give him a bit more to grip too. Oops. And I don't think with these that you have to layer as much as I am. It just depends on the end result that you want. Jetstream says, is the baby chicken making any progress on the Harry Potter team thing? I actually stopped playing the Harry Potter song for him because he got obsessed with the Addams Family. So that was the main one that he was listening to. And then at some point, I think I forgot to put the video on, because I find the videos for training them on here on YouTube. If you type in like cockatiel and then whatever song, they're training videos for them. I forgot to hit loop on the video, and so this one came up, or the Game of Thrones came up on one of them, and he got so excited. So that's the one he's been learning lately, because, well, he's got the beginning of it perfectly, but he seems to like that one the best right now. So I was just talking about that the other day, that I want to try the Harry Potter one. He has a harder time with the long drawn out, like the whole notes. He's really good at the short staccato notes, the faster notes. I think it's more that that's what interests him. So anything that's faster works better. Harry Potter are those long drawn out ones, and he doesn't get as excited about that type of note. He is starting to do some of the long notes for Game of Thrones, though. He just started doing that yesterday or the day before was the first time I heard him try those long notes. Normally he just does the fast staccato notes over and over again. Rachel says, the other day I saw a cool form of art, dotting. You take the paint and basically create from the form of dots. Have you ever done this before? It's actually called pointillism. And yes, I have. Not in a very long time. But it is a very fun, very cool way to work. I used to know an artist who did like everything that way, and it was amazing. He got really realistic work from doing that style. It was so cool. Now I'm starting to get to where the water is getting about to the color that I want it to be. And I think too, what I'll probably do is even once I get the water mostly done and draw in the whales, I may pull more blue on top of everything to make it look like they're more in the water. Eric Draws wants to know if the chicken can sing a little bit for us. So fun thing about birds, good luck making them do what you want when you want. He's kind of talking now. But mostly he'll start talking if I play like a video, if the YouTube video is on. He does it when I'm editing my videos where he hears people talking through a video. He'll really start talking and singing. But he just does whatever he wants when he wants. I don't have any control there. Okay, I'm going to mute you guys. Actually, I'll answer some questions. We'll let that set for a minute. Let's see. Beck says, I have used the inks with the pouring medium and it worked out great. The metallic look is amazing swirled through the pouring medium. Oh, that's a good idea. The metallic with the pouring medium. Okay, I'm going to have to do, I'm out of money right now. It's insane how many art supplies I have bought. I actually did an art supply haul that will be going up, not this weekend, I think the next weekend. And then I ordered like twice as much stuff. So I have even more stuff that's not in the video. I've been going through and reorganizing my studio, and okay, it doesn't look that different, but it is organized. I'm going to do a tour showing that part of the studio as well. There'll be two different tours, one with organization stuff and one with just so you feel like you're in the room with a 360 video. But I have spent so much replacing old art supplies where I'm like, why this is bad. The oil paint. I had a ton of old oil paint that was just dried up and not usable. Replaced a bunch of that, replaced paper. So much stuff. So, yeah, I don't remember what my point was there. Yeah, Joseph Fincham says, it's like herding cats. Yeah, trying to get a bird to do what you want, very similar to trying to get a cat to do what you want. Mara Black says, is this paper the only one with a logo in it, or do most? Isn't this a pain and a waste? I'm concerned about wasting money, having to buy bigger because of missing a chunk. Yeah, I don't know if they all have it. All the ones I've seen with the Fabriano. Actually, I've got another sheet. Hold on, I'll let you know. So I also have this Fabriano cold press watercolor paper. This one does not have it burned in anywhere. This is their studio watercolor. That does not have the name on it. All of the Fabriano Artistico, when I bought it in packs, did. I have not looked at the block yet, so I'm not sure there. I'll have to let you know when I eventually try that. But yeah, it is annoying. But I typically trim one big sheet. I think it's a 22 by 30 or something like that, down to 4 11 by 14s, but it's a little bit bigger than 11 by 14. So I have room to chop off. It's not a big deal. Just depending on what size I'm using. And typically it's always been worth it to me just because I like the paper enough. Although from what I understand, the newer versions of this is not as good as what I have. I've got a new order coming. It's a back order until like March or something. So when I try that, I'll be able to let you guys know how similar it is. But I'm hearing a lot of not good things about the newer version. So that's a little bit concerning. There, he's singing kind of. Let's see. Sheila wants to know if I'm using the Graphitint for the Orcas as well. I am. But probably you won't see that tonight. You'll see this on the fuller video when I get to those. Tonight we're just focusing on the water. Max wants to know the difference between Graphitint, watercolor pencil, and Inktense. Graphitint, water-soluble graphite. They move a little bit when they're dry, but not much. They're semi-permanent. Inktense are water-soluble ink. They are permanent when dried. They do not move once the water has completely saturated all of whatever bits and dried. Then you've got watercolor, which is watercolor pencil. That will relift when you work. So I can put a layer down and decide I want like the rays of light. I could have done all of this with watercolor pencil with blue and then added more water and lifted off the rays of light instead of working around it. So that would be a difference. Just the way that you layer is going to be different because of that. One more time. Shim Shimmel. Let's see. S-C-H-I-M. No. Let me look at more of these, but no, I don't think that's... No, definitely not the same. Oh, the dolphins. I've seen these, but I've seen these on, like, folders of artwork. No, that's definitely not the same artist. Nameless Winter wants to know if Baby Chicken is his name. His name was technically Jace, Jace, but I've always called him the Chicken, and that's just what we call him now. And he answers to that, like how I get him to come when he like goes under a table and I need him to come out. I just move my fingers on the floor and say, "Come here, chicken, chicken," and I don't want to say that too loud because he'll come to me. But if I use the word chicken twice like that, he'll usually come when I call him. So I think he thinks that's his name, and he'll call me from the other room. He'll sit in there and go, "Hi, chicken," and I'll say it back to him, and we just kind of go back and forth saying, "Hi, chicken." That's sort of Adam's family back there. Okay, I'm going to mute you guys so I can dry this and go on to the next one. Oh, let's try this name again. Try Robin Coney. Nope, not that one. And what was the other name to try? David Miller. I'm familiar with that name, and I'm nearly certain that's not the person. Whoops, I should have put artist after that. Let's see. Nope, that is also not the artist. I think I have an old photo of it, from an old calendar I came across at some point, and hopefully I've not thrown it out. If I still have it, I'll be able to do a Google image search on it. I just haven't yet. That's going back to the artist who inspired me when I was younger. So, okay. Now I'm really going to mute you this time so that I can dry this. Like Melissa says, if Lisa wasn't already married, this search for the mystery artist could totally be the plot to a Hallmark movie. Actually, I think it would be a more creepy Hallmark, too creepy for Hallmark, because I was like 14, 15 at the time that he was a professional, so the age gap there might be pretty severe, especially if we look at when I started watching the person. Fleur says, when I draw, I need a photo reference for it to be good, but when I try without copying, it looks really bad. How can I learn to draw without a reference photo? Here's the thing, most artists, we all use reference photos. This is an exception, and it's only because I've painted so many thousands of paintings that look almost just like this. We use reference. That's what artists do. If you're going for photorealism, the whole point of photorealism is you're working off a photo. It's going to be realistic because you're working off a photo. That's in the name. Don't think that your work is somehow better if you don't use a reference photo. That's not how art works. And the people who think that are very uneducated in how art works. They usually are not people who work in photorealism. If they were, they'd know you need reference, whether that be a live model or a photo, generally a photo, because that's what photorealism is. But, don't feel like you need to learn to work without a reference photo. You absolutely do not. This is not going to be one of my best pieces ever. It's fun, but it's not going to be the best thing ever produced. I don't have a reference photo. If I want to be really, really accurate, I'm going to work off a photo. So you've got to get out of your head that you need to learn to work without that photo. You don't. Any professional artist who you look at and you're like, wow, I love their work so much. They're using where it's realistic. They're using reference photos. That's how we work. Mara says, with the way this works with water, can you get defined lines? Absolutely. You can get very defined lines. And especially if you use a small paintbrush for moving the water around. Hi, chicken. Probably shouldn't answer him right now when he says, hi, chicken. There's a good chance of him jumping. I'm going to sharpen these pencils. I have to say, I am super impressed with that chicken. He's doing so well with training him to stay on his branch. Okay, Madison Dobbs says, I posted in the Patreon Facebook group. If you can give it a look, either when you get a second or at the end of the live stream. Yeah, I don't know if I will tonight because I'm always really tired. Wednesdays are super busy days for me because I have to make my video. It's a busy day, lots of stuff. So I may not be till tomorrow, but yeah, I'll take a look at it. Moon Ram says, when you layer these pencils, do you hit a saturation point where the paper can't take any more color, where it starts to look chalky or muddy? I've not hit that point yet. It's not like regular colored pencil where you get that wax bloom. With these, there's no wax bloom, and I'm using a light hand, so I'm never damaging the tooth of the paper, so you can just layer on top of layer. You can hit a point depending on the colors you use. I mean, if I start using orange, well, there isn't orange with this, but I mean, if I started using a color that didn't really work with this, I could hit a point where they just didn't mix well together and you start to create mud, but that's a little different. Anthony says, I'm interested in oil paint. I'm thinking about getting a black and white tube, but I'm confused by what supplies I need. Do you know of any sets with all of the supplies? Not with all of the supplies, no. But if you go to my website, Lachri.com, there's on the menu, there's a section for supplies. There's another one for oil painting, and you can see all of the stuff that I recommend there. You can also look up Intro to Oil Painting that I've done, where I'm painting an apple, and look up Lachri and Intro to Oil Painting, and that I go over supplies too. Funny Dude says, Derwent also makes the Derwent Drawing 24 pencils, which have the same color as the Graphitint and are not water soluble. That is awesome, and I may need to have them send me some. Actually, right now, I have to talk to them about getting some of the Derwent Drawing. I thought, just because other artists had recommended Derwent Drawing Chinese White, so that's all I had used. Didn't even consider getting the other colors. There's not that many colors available, but they sent me a sample of a bunch of them. The Derwent Drawing Green, or it's like olive. I loved that one too, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to like all the Derwent Drawing pencils, so I have to get some of those. I wish there were more colors of that one. I really liked how that one worked. Oh, there you go. You said Derwent Drawing. I read that as Derwent Artist. So there you go. The Derwent Drawing would match these. Then yes, absolutely, I have to get those. I should read things more clearly. Tamara says, you are now the mother of chickens since he's Game of Thrones. Yeah. You think that's true? You don't know? I think he's getting sleepy in the dark in here. Beck Neal says, how do I get over the fear of sharpening my colored pencils? I'm afraid I'll waste them if I sharpen too much. I know this is irrational, but I don't know how to get over it. I know what you're talking about. You just do it. The more you do it, the less it's going to bother you, I think. And you can also make the sharpening last a little bit longer by using sanded paper, a block of sanded paper that you see with the art supply stores. It's like a strip. You can sharpen and get your pencils to a much finer point using that. So you're not just having, if you had a long point along a lot of the lead showing, but it wasn't a fine point, you can sharpen and get to a point that way, which will make it not seem like you're full on sharpening every time you just need the tip to be sharper, but you still have lead, if that makes any sense. Mar Black says, chicken is on his best behavior because he wants to do this again. He loves the spotlight. Maybe. I think he just likes not being in the other room by himself. He wants to be with us all the time. He's so social, which is, I mean, birds are social. They don't want to be alone. But I've tried bringing him in here before when I was working on stuff, and not for live streams, but he just wouldn't stay on his perch or the other spot that I put him. But we seem to have figured out the training. What I think was happening is every time he would jump to come get us, we would pick him up, like put our finger out, and he'd step on, and then he'd jump onto our shoulder, and he was happy. That's what he wanted. So I finally had to stop doing that, and now I pick him up around his wings when he jumps. Not when I pick him up out there, but if he jumps onto the floor, I pick him up around his wings just gently and stick him on top of the perch. So he's not getting the reward of sitting on my shoulder or sitting on my hand the way he wants. And since I started doing that, he's doing better with staying put. Because I think that we were basically rewarding the behavior we wanted to adjust, him jumping off this spot. And he's doing good. So he's able to stay out and stay in the room with us way, way more often than he was. So like if I'm cleaning, he can, well, not if I'm using harsh cleaning chemicals, but like just normal dusting or mopping, he can be out for that where he used to have to go away. Moonram says, would you say the quality of paper determines how many layers you can lay down with these or Inktense pencils? Not really. As long as you're using a light hand like I am, I don't think any paper is going to hit a point where it can't take more layers. However, there are types of paper who don't work well with water, you know, with the amount of water I'm using here, aren't going to yield themselves well to those techniques. So it matters in a sense just in how much water that paper can take. But as far as how many layers it can take, it's more of how much water it can take, I think, than the actual pencil layers. So I'm using that more teal color. This is the ocean blue. Oh, fitting. I'm hoping this will be one of my last layers before I start on some whales. Which works out well, because that would actually mean that tonight we finish the water for this live stream, which was my goal. But see how messy I am, where you can see all of those pencil strokes, but you really can't see them once I go over it with water. So you really can be very, very messy. You don't have to use, like, you know, when I talk about with colored pencil, we work in the little circles or the little ovals. You don't really have to do that with this. They blend out so well. And even if I was using Inktense, you would see a lot of these brush strokes. This one seems to blend out softer. Hi, chicken. He mimics my laugh, and there's two laughs, like my loud laugh, and then he mimics my, where I'm kind of like snorting under my breath. When he started mimicking that, I thought he was sick. I'm like, you sound congested. Oh my gosh, we have to take you to a vet. You're going to die. And no, it turned out that's what I sound like when I snort, and the chicken copies it. I'm like, gee, thanks, chicken. Yeah, you think that he's laughing now. You think that's funny, huh? Tomorrow says, what is this dusting and mopping of which you speak? And it's a hard thing because I don't have a lot of time, but I've turned into a bit of a clean freak and I want everything clean all the time. Not as bad as, I mean, I know of people who are worse than I am, but I'm really weird about it. So it's like, that's one thing that no matter how busy I am, I make time to clean. The only time I don't clean is if I'm really, really sick. You can always tell when I start feeling better because I get back to cleaning things. Let's see. Sarah says airbrush paint works beautifully with pouring medium as well. I could see why that would. And I've got some new paint that I think might, my Createx, which I won't be using as much for the airbrush. Maybe I should try it with that. I think that would work great. Onyx Fire says, have you ever struggled with pushing through the ugly stage with any of the mediums you work with? How did you get past it? I did, well, I don't know, everyone. I think every time I'm in an ugly stage, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And the way that I get past it is I work on small areas at a time, especially with colored pencil because it's so slow. So I'll do like one feather on a bird at a time, one or two feathers, not all the feathers in one layer at a time. That has been the best thing for me is just to break it down. And by working on one little area at a time, it seems like, hey, stop it. He does the squeaking dumpster door and it's the most annoying sound. But that's going to be what he learns to say next is, hey, stop it. But when you work on one little area and finish that one little area, you've got one little area that looks good now. And I think that makes it easier to deal with those ugly stages when you've got certain complete stages. Anthony wants to know if I've ever gone out of the country. If so, where? Nope, I have not. I don't travel pretty much at all. Ferret Art Studio says, I know that you probably had enough searching, but could you possibly be Trekker L? I can't, let's De La Cruz. Let me check. That name doesn't sound at all familiar. I'm going to just copy paste that. Let's see. Ooh, I like his work. I don't think this is him. No, this isn't him, but I do like his work. Unless his style has seriously changed. Mara says, would you add yellow in the rays, or would it be too concerned about it turning green? I wouldn't add yellow, because yellow in water, what do you think of when you see yellow water? I'm just going to leave that there and let you make your assumptions. I don't, yellow, no. And these don't come with yellow. There is no yellow in this set, so that wouldn't be an option anyway. But yes, yellow with the blue, I would not want it to turn green. Green wouldn't bother me. I don't want yellow water. Moonram says, do you think the layering technique would work on a coloring book paper? Is there a better way or technique for such paper? Coloring books all have different, they're not all the same. There's no standard to coloring book paper, so I don't know. It would depend on the paper itself. And I'm not an expert with coloring books, so I can't tell you how many of them would do, if any of them would do well or not, because they're not really meant usually for water. So now I'm using that darker blue. This is the indigo. You see I'm going a lot faster now that I already have so much on there. Because even if I don't get great coverage, it doesn't matter. I've already got enough of the blue behind it. What is, oh, this whole section was supposed to be blue. Whoops, missed a spot. See how many different directions I'm going? If you are using regular colored pencil, don't do this. This is a horrible, horrible technique. But it works great for this because you can lay down so much so fast. You know what would be cool is if they made, you know how you can get graphite blocks? Well, kind of like the Inktense blocks. It'd be really cool if they had some of that of these. Being that this lays down so smooth, I bet that it would work beautifully. Especially for large areas. I haven't looked. I guess it's possible that they have them. I just don't think they do. Mara says, ew, yes, got you. That would look infected. Yuck. I wasn't going with infected, but that would be another word. I was thinking like yellow snow level of not wanting yellow. I had to laugh. Somebody recently left a nasty comment on one of my videos, and their username was an art name, something about like, what was it? Like Blackwater Studios or Blackwater something, and it was an unfriendly comment, and I had to laugh. I'm like, oh, you did not do the research on your name, did you? Because when you look up what Blackwater means, it has two very negative. One was a really bad military group that kind of went off the books and did some bad things. The other was a, it's basically poo water. So when you choose your art names, spend a little bit of time researching that, because, yeah, you don't want to be known as the poo water artist. Sterling says, are you using the point or the side? I'm using the side of the pencil for this. When I get to finer detail, I'll start using the point of the pencil. Lila wants to know why I don't travel. I don't feel well most of the time. Everything exhausts me. So like even when I go run around and do errands for a couple of hours with my husband, go shopping, things that I actually enjoy doing. You go to the art supply store. I'm exhausted after. I have to come home and go to sleep. So as much as I like to pretend I don't have issues with my health, realistically I do. And so it doesn't take much for me to just be on the verge of passing out. So that's my big thing with travel, is just exhausting. Even when I go visit my parents and they let me just be lazy and sleep the whole time, it's just so exhausting for me. Phyllis says, my brother's parrot Rio says, shut up Rio, all the time. We had a yellow nape Amazon, or a double yellow-headed Amazon. We had several Amazons, but the double yellow nape, his name was Bob. And he lived with us for a while. My mom worked with breeders, and so sometimes they'd live with us, sometimes they'd live with other breeders. Well, Bob lived with us for a while, and Bob would yell, and you could hear him down the street. What was it? Shut up, Bob. Bob, come here. Or just screaming, Bob! Apparently, Bob was the name of the husband of this woman, or the woman who he was imitating, and she used to scream at her husband a lot because Bob the bird, who ended up someone named Bob because he said it all the time, because birds live, I mean, they outlive people. So who knows how old, I don't remember how old he was, but I mean, he may have lived with these people for 20 years and listened to this woman yell Bob, and so the bird started saying it. It was really funny. Fiddle Joel says, you're exhausted because you work all the time. Well, I didn't used to work all the time, and I was still exhausted. So I definitely can't say that. I don't know that working all the time helps. I actually don't know that it makes it worse either, though. So I've always felt tired all the time. The joys of fibromyalgia. Moonram says, what subjects work best for painting with the color range of graphitints? It seems like ocean things fit very well. You're not going to get the yellows. You're not going to get some of the brighter reds. There is a kind of a reddish brown in this, but they're very, very muted. So I think stuff like this is really pretty. I also think that they would be pretty for doing florals that you intentionally wanted to be more muted than what they would be in real life. So I was thinking about doing that today, and I was like, I need something that's simple because I need to get a week ahead since I'm going to be going to that art convention thing. So I'm just squiggling the brush, by the way, and really liking the result here. Just lots of water and just wiggling it as I pull it down. But yeah, no, it's not just from that. Also, just to be clear, there are a lot of artists who use that, because I've mentioned the Blackwater person. I don't want to be like bashing somebody and have you guys think the wrong person was rude or something like that. That was not, there are a lot of people who use that word. I'm not sure why. Again, research, people. But yeah, I don't want you to run and assume somebody was mean to me who was not, because it's entirely possible, knowing that I've seen other people use that name, that it could be the wrong person. Holly says, I worked at a place that had a green wing macaw, and he used to yell butt scratcher as loud as possible at the worst times. Yeah, luckily I had a blue friend at Amazon when I was younger, and I'm kind of glad because it was before I got to the age of let's swear nonstop. And so luckily the bird did not swear at all, because that bird imitated everything I said. She used to yell when the phone would ring, hang up, I got it, because this is back when people had normal phones. And so when my sister or I would answer it, we'd always yell, hang up, I got it, when it was one of our own friends. Oh, my mom used to hate that. We used to get in trouble for that all the time. So she broke me and my sister of doing it, but the bird kept doing it. So every time the phone would ring, the bird would yell, hang up, I got it. And my mom would think it was me or my sister doing it, and we'd get yelled at. I'm like, no, it's the bird. I didn't do it. I promise. My mom has always been really big on phone manners. And so that was apparently not appropriate behavior, is yelling through the phone, hang up, I got it. Mara Black says, are you going to put purple in with the black on the whales? Probably not. I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'm going with this yet. I mean, we'll see. I don't plan on it, but I'm not going to say for sure that I would not, because I love the purple colors in this set so much. But I don't know that it would really make sense unless I pull some of that purple in the water. And I could do that. I could pull purple right here and let the purple fade up into the brown. So that's a possibility. I hit my head on my camera. Leela says, Blackwater is still around. They changed their name to Academy. True story, dude. Which Blackwater? The military, shady, not good group? And you know why I know that? My band, my last band, or the last time I was in a band, we were looking for a name change or a name. We'd been going by Christian Ross, which didn't make any sense as a full band. And so we were looking at names, and he really liked Blackwater. Blackwater something. It wasn't just Blackwater. It was Blackwater, I forget what it was. But that's when I researched that. Anytime we had a name, I did a lot of research. Like, okay, does this mean something we may not think it means? And that's how I know all of that, when I did that research. And so now when I see artists use, there's certain words, not just that one, just other artist names. And it's like, oh, I wish you would have researched that. You're going to wish you researched that once somebody points it out to you, because it's kind of embarrassing. Not what you want to be associated with. Rachel wants to know if I ever use sponges as a tool to create art. Yes, I do, and I just got some new ones, and that will be in the art supply haul too. Moonram says, should the whites be saved when working with the pencils? How easy is it to correct mistakes? Yeah, if I needed anything to be white, I need it to stay white. I would want to protect the paper, and that's where masking fluid would have been a good way to go. But here, I don't want any of this to be white. I'm intentionally pulling blue on top of it because they're underwater. They wouldn't be white. We know that they're white, but that doesn't mean white things aren't white. And I've talked about this before. White's not white, it's reflective. And so white is going to be saved for your brightest highlights. And for that, I'm going to try some India ink and see how I like that. I don't think that's going to be opaque enough. The other thing that I have is Inktense. I can use my Inktense pencils to create the white that I need if I need something to be more opaque. These do have white, but it doesn't show up very well. I'm not a huge fan of the white in this set, or it's a color that I don't see myself ever needing to replace because I use it so infrequently. It works okay if you push really hard, so I might use it on the sand a little. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But it's not a really opaque, so like if I needed something to be really, really white, then I would probably have wanted to leave the white of the paper showing through. Oh, giving him a new pine cone was a good idea. He's had one up there that still had coconut in it, but for some reason, new is better. So he should be able to join us anytime, really, I work in. These Graphite or Inktense are the only mediums that I think I work in that I would be comfortable with him being in the room with, because even when I work with acrylics, I use the airbrush and I don't want to chance those fumes, even if they're non-toxic. You don't want birds breathing stuff like that. So, and I can't put a bird mask on him. Unfortunately, I don't think he'd cooperate with me on that one. Leela says, yeah, it was the military one, the one that you changed their name to Academy from Blackwater. Are they still pulling the same? Is it still like the same group of people doing the same bad things? I haven't researched them in years. Yeah, that's a good idea. Jetstream says I can borrow white gouache. Mark Krulers? You mean Criley? His beloved white gouache. That make the highlights stand out more. White gouache would definitely work well with this. Moonram wants to know how to correct mistakes with these pencils. I think it depends on what the mistake is. If you can cover it with something else, that's one way. These don't really lift like watercolor do, so you're not going to fix a mistake that way. And with these pencils alone, the white seems to be very translucent. So we see I added white here. It lightened it a little, not much. There's where I pushed really hard and added water. Again, it's a little bit lighter, but not much. Now, if I take an Inktense white block, I would say pick up some of those, because you could paint that over it, make your paper white again, and then put the color you want over it would probably be the easiest way. But here's the thing too, how big is the mistake? Let the mistake work for you. Sometimes mistakes can look pretty cool. Just because things aren't exactly what you intended doesn't mean that they're bad. Stephanie says, could I possibly give more details about the space orcas? Was it an oil painting? Was it realistic, sketchy? What was the background like? They were dark. It was almost black with a little bit of either gold, kind of a galaxy. And when I say galaxy, I don't mean like galaxy where you see the swirls. It was just like a blob of kind of abstracty color and stars. And whales swimming through it. And that was about all I remember. Renee wants to know if I've tried using Inktense on fabric. If so, does it make this fabric stiff? I have not... But I don't think that it does, because I think people painted on that. I've accidentally gotten it on clothing and it didn't make it stiff. I want to check one thing and see. There's one place I might have left that artwork I was talking about. Hold on. Stay there, chicken. Knocking stuff down. Let's see if I have anything in here, because I came across and thought, oh, I need to save that so I can look it up, but I don't remember where, or if I ended up saving it, or if I threw it out when I went on a cleaning spree. That happens sometimes. I get a little overexcited about throwing stuff out. I'm not seeing anything yet. I used to have tons of these folders full of stuff, and I threw most of them away finally because I had so many. I even have stuff that's so old, it's stuff I pulled off the internet that was not copyright or royalty free because I didn't understand that stuff back then. Yeah, I'm not seeing... Chicken. What do you have to jump for? You were doing so well. Where'd you go? I'm still not seeing it. This is the last folder to look through. Nope, I don't have it in here. I'll have to check because I found some stuff in the car recently in a book bag that might be. Oh, he's on my foot. Come here, chicken. Are we at the end of the video? Do you want to say hi to everybody now? You could sit up here. I shouldn't reward you for jumping, but there we go. You're adorable, and you were very good. Oh, don't bite at me. You're fine. No, I don't need you on my hand. Get off my hand. Get back on the shoulder. You're a shoulder chicken. I'm going to go ahead and stop painting for tonight. The finished painting will be up in, I think, 2 weeks. I will post photos on Instagram as I get going a little bit further. But this is basically where the water is going to end. You can see where I've left the rays of light showing through. You can be very messy. As I move the brush, I just kind of stayed squiggly. But you want to experiment. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. If you make a mistake, no big deal. Start over again or continue working on it. So as you can see, this, again, I would have had done... It probably would have taken me maybe 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes to get this far if I was not sitting here chatting with you guys and then using the hairdryer to dry in between. So it's not that it's a very fast medium, which is one of the things that I like so much about it. And oh, these colors are pretty. Tomorrow says, what is this throwing stuff away? Well, I ran out of room for the new stuff that I would actually use, and then I couldn't find the stuff I wanted because of the old stuff, so I had to start getting rid of stuff. Actually, most of the stuff I got rid of when I cleaned out my studio, besides the dried up oil paint, I gave it to the girls at my apartment office because they like to paint and draw, so I brought all that up to them for them to use. So I didn't actually throw away art supplies so no one gets scared. I donated them to some friends, or, well, friends, apartment managers. Where are you going? Where do you think you're going? Did you get bored sitting still? Let's see. What do I think about the name on the paper showing on the left hand of the work? I'm going to cut that off. That I intentionally drew them too far to this side so that I could cut it off right at that point. Leela wants to steal my little chicken. No, I love the chicken. This is the wrong side, chicken. Oh, you're just full of it right now. I think he was good for too long, and now he is just full of it. You are going to be rotten, aren't you? Yeah. Hi, chicken. And let's see. Can answer a couple more questions before we end tonight. Scrolling up. Yeah, I'll try to see if I can find the... Oh, I'm sorry. Did I poke you in the face? I'm sorry. I'll try to see if I can find the artwork that I was talking about that I liked so much. I want to say that I've got at least one image that I saved out of the poster. And when I cleaned, I didn't come across it, so I don't think it's in here. It might be out in the car. I'm going to have to go out and look. I'm using my husband's trunk as storage because I ran out of room in here, and it was stuff I didn't really need but didn't want to throw away, or actually I didn't want to sort through it. So I'll try to see and let you guys know next week what that was. Tamara says, you are inspiring me to clear out my art space and to get a baby chicken. Well, he can be in here as long as you're not using certain chemicals, sprays, oil paint, that sort of thing. You could have a chicken studio assistant in your studio, depending on what mediums you work in. The Wizard says, have you gotten a chance to make the Orcas in Space print available? Which one was that? No, I have not. I need to do that. I've got a few prints. I was taking photos this week so that I could get a bunch. So it'll go up at the same time as the tiger that I did in colored pencil like 2 years ago. I never got that one up. So I got photos of it this week. So I'm trying to get caught up on this stuff. Funny Dude said, did you ever use that Lucas Studio set again? The one you got in the Smart Art Box? No, that was one I donated because it wasn't that it was bad. I actually kind of liked it it was an oil painting set, and I liked it for doing kind of thick. I actually have the artwork I created with it is up on my wall. I liked what I made with it as far as doing that texture or the painting with a palette knife. But if I'm going to oil paint, I'm going to use my Winsor & Newton stuff. So I didn't keep it. I went ahead and donated it to somebody else who could use it. Jones Flores says, overall, did you like working with the Derwent Graphitint? I love these. I like how soft they are and how fast they lay down. Again, it seems like this took forever. Like that's not much work in 2 hours, but that's because I was being slow. I really like these. And if you look up on my older videos, I had done a bird. You can get a lot of detail with them too. And that was my first time using them. So they seem to be a fairly versatile medium. They don't have a lot of color, so that's something to keep in mind depending on what you're doing. But just the way that they blend and they lay down and they go down so soft. Like I don't like working with Inktense where I put the pencil straight on the paper. I usually like to make a mixture separately and apply that with a brush to the work because it gets so gritty. This isn't so gritty. I mean, I was messy, and the messy brush strokes, some of these all work out, but it's very, very soft, which I really, really like about these. Moonram says, could you choose a size small enough to complete a painting fully during a live stream? I have. I actually have done a few paintings in the live stream. So the answer to that is yes. Funny Dude says the Lucas Studio is a watercolor set, the one you used on Yupo paper. Oh, no, I have not used that yet. I had a Lucas oil painting set, so that was the one I was thinking of. That's the one I donated. The watercolor one, I want to say I kept that. When I cleaned out my studio drawers, I think that I kept that. I can't remember now. Mara Black says, is that clipboard you've taped the piece to? Where can you get such large clipboards? This one just at the art supply store. Go over to their drafting section usually is where you'll see these. And they have tons of different sizes. I've got huge ones and little ones. And yeah, that's where I get that. I've gotten them at Michael's. I've gotten them at Hobby Lobby. Tamara says, will this be a Patreon video when you're finished? I'd love to see the Orcas come alive. Absolutely. And it'll probably be, this part in Patreon will be sped up so that I can do the Orcas in real time. Like the whole section of Orcas will probably be in real time for Patreon. So yes, it will. And not next week is going to be the macaw. And then the following week will be this one. And we are at 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining. I forgot to mention the mods today. Make sure you check over and check out, check out Valerie. She has a wood burning channel here on YouTube. And we've got Joseph Fincham, who has a painting channel. They both do amazing artwork. Make sure to head over and check that out and harass them both to create more videos because I think they could both create some more. Joseph, actually speaking of, says, oh, and the links to their channels are below in the video description. Joseph says, the wetboard thing, the Asian ink box was really cool. Yeah, it was the Buddha board. That thing was amazing. That I have kept. That is in my studio. That one will not be donated. I loved that thing, the Buddha board. And they have bigger ones. So that just to be able to practice and not worry about wasting paper, just anything. You can just, they say that the point is to paint in the moment with those. That you do, because you're not going to mess it up, which is really cool. Mara says, can you use frog tape to tape your work down, or do you need a stronger tape? I don't know what frog tape is. Mine is masking tape. This one is regular masking tape because it doesn't, actually Fabriano is hard to rip anyway, so I seem to be pretty safe with that. But normally when you see me use black tape on paper that's a little bit more delicate, like Stonehenge, that one is an acid-free, like an art tape, and it has a lower tack. I get that one from Jerry's Artorama. But again, thank you so much to the moderators for helping, Joseph and Valerie. Make sure to check out their channels. I will see you next week. I have no idea what next week is going to be. I should probably figure that out, huh? But thank you so much for joining. Oh, Valerie says she's working on it and it takes so long. I make 5 videos a week. It's hard for me to feel bad for you that it takes so long. Create more work. We want to see more videos from you guys. Thanks again for joining, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.